Hey everyone, it's Nick from Splice, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to play chords if you can't play keyboard. Let me preface this saying by actually learning the keyboard and music theory is both rewarding and a great investment of your time. However, in today's video I wanted to show you a lot of the tools that are built into the DAW that will help you play chord progressions. And in this video we're going to look at Ableton, Studio One, and Logic. And we're going to look at how to use the QWERTY keyboard as your keyboard. We're going to look at the chord device itself. And lastly, we're going to see how to capture the MIDI of the chord so you can actually change the chords afterwards. So let's begin here with Ableton. All right, so in Ableton right now I have a standard drum loop and an instrument. Let's see, we have Whirly V here. And let's just go ahead here, the beat, and I'm going to show you how to use the keyboard. So let's hear the beat here. In Ableton, if you click on this icon here at the top right with the piano notes, that's going to activate the QWERTY keyboard as a MIDI keyboard. And remember, you have to arm the track here on the right-hand side. You can also, if you have Ableton 10.1, arm the keyboard or activate the QWERTY keyboard using the keyboard shortcut M as for MIDI. So now that's active. A is actually C on the keyboard. So it's A is like the lowest point, and then we have D, E. If you remember, F and G line up with the actual notes F and G on the keyboard. So let's hear the chord device, and then I'm going to actually show you the chord device. All right, so I'm actually just kind of hitting letters randomly on the keyboard, but I'm just giving a sense of, do I want to go lower or higher? So this is going low, then up to the G, down to the key E, which is E flat on the keyboard. But again, it doesn't really matter. You just kind of hear what sounds good. So how do we actually set this up? I'm going to put in a new instance of the Whirly. So I'm just going to put in a new MIDI track using Shift-Command-T, and I'm going to option drag the Whirly so that we have a duplicate instance here. Now, if you just go into the MIDI effects window in the browser and then go to the chord MIDI effect, you're going to have some preset chords. And let's just go ahead, maybe use this. We have these standard ones. Maybe the minor ninth chord is what I started with. And so if you don't know your chords, that's fine. What I would recommend is just dragging one by one onto this new MIDI track, arm the track, and then turn on the keyboard here or use the M keyboard command, and hit the letter A to hear the. Now to change octaves in Ableton's keyboard, you can use Z to go lower or X to go one octave higher. And you can actually adjust the velocity with C or V on the keyboard. So C makes the velocity lower, so very soft, versus V making it really hard. So you can hear that difference. Actually, it sounds nice. So one thing you want to do, though, with Ableton's chords, especially if you just pick like the minor ninth chord, is you want to make sure it sounds in key. And if you know a little about music theory, the chromatic notes don't always line up in this one scale. So we normally only have 7 notes in a scale. So I like using the scale tool as well. And what I'm going to do is I have the chord here. I'm now going to go to the scale and put that at the end of the chord device. So I'm going to use the C minor scale. Now hear the difference with that. I'm going to go up. Here's A. Very chromatic. Now if I put the C minor scale tool right after the chord device, oh. So it's locking all the notes into the scale no matter how the chord tool. And listen to the difference before though. Let's hear. So if the scale tool is actually before the chord tool, it actually does make a difference, and you will still get some we'll say maybe accidentals or borrowed notes. That sounds nice. So let's see what the chord device is actually doing. And essentially, it's just adding a note on top of the note you input. And in this case, it's adding 1, 2, 3, 4 notes. And you can see the relationship right here. So that's 3 semitones higher, 7 semitones higher, 10 semitones, 14 semitones, which is a minor ninth chord. Let's just get a regular chord device in what do I call a default patch. I'm going to disable this preset. And notice the chord device doesn't do anything by itself. I'm going to turn off the scale too. So as I drag that second shift parameter, it's actually adding the note 5 semitones higher. And you can actually adjust the velocity of that one. So a minor ninth chord is going to look like 3, which they have, 7, 10, and 14. But maybe we can experiment and do like 3, 7, maybe skip the 10, go 14. And then I'm going to actually type in 24. Actually, yeah, 24. So it's really high up there. And again, turn on the scale device. Now, I did go a little advanced and do a little extra steps on the example I showed you here. So let's go back to this original track. And what actually I did was turn the initial chord and scale device into an effect rack. And to show you that process, I'm just going to show you the basics of it, but not go through the whole thing. So if you actually shift select these and Command G for a group, that turns them into a rack. And so now I can go to the chain list here. And what the beauty of this, I'm going to go. So if I actually just duplicate, we're going to call this like minor ninth. If I actually duplicate this, Command D, and take the second one and just call it seventh, minor seventh, which if you don't know your music theory, this is where you can see taking from the presets is nice, or looking these up. But yeah, Ableton's is much more granular and you have to do it yourself. But so this minor seventh, I'm actually going to take this and go down to 2 semitones, actually just the 10. So now this is the seventh. And what we'll do is we'll actually go into the chain list here. Now the chain list is amazing in the Ableton Effect Rack. It essentially allows you to select a single chain to process the audio through. Right now they're both at the position 0, and they're 0 through 127, giving you 128 full values. If I actually take the second minor seventh and move it to the 1 position, and then take the chain selector, means I'm only hearing this minor ninth chord. If I take the chain selector and move it now to that 1 position, it's hard to hear. Let me make the note a little louder, the one that's changing. So I'm going to take the velocity up versus here. And what we can do is then map this to a macro by right-clicking, map to macro 1. And the important thing is, say if we only had 3 of these, I'm going to do one more. I'm going to call this, I'm going to do this just a sus 4. So it's a suspended fourth. I'm going to put this over 1. Take this, and the suspended 4, instead of having the third in it, it has the fourth. And so I'm going to do 5 semitones. And now move the chain selector to value 2. Now notice, I don't have these filled out, and actually dragging this all the way across is not going to be useful. So we can go to the map function and take the maximum value to 2, hit enter, and then get out of map. So now, so essentially I did that on this device, and I just kept going and did more inversions, more chord types. Changed, also mapped some parameters like a random. device in there. So we'll have the device available in the description. So just download that device if you want to save you some time. But now let's talk about the final step, is recording the MIDI so you can get the chords. So let's watch this. Let's record some idea. So I didn't really like the ending, but most of that was pretty good. Now notice, the notes are just the root note that I'm inputting. So how do I actually get the MIDI, the chords that's being output that I'm actually hearing? So we do just need to set up a separate MIDI track, and in Ableton we can do Shift-Command-T to put in a new MIDI track. And it's pretty simple in Ableton. All you need to do is go into the ins, and then we're going to select the ins from that track that we already have, the chord device and the whirly on. So now that the ins are here, and we just need to simply arm it and hit record. So the root note's already in there. And you can see it would keep going, but this is a really nice technique. And again, this works really well with arpeggiators as well. To get the single notes of the arpeggiation and the chords, you just need to set up a separate MIDI track. I can see it's a little loose. But then I can actually go in there and change the voicing. And actually, sorry, I need to, I wasn't hearing what I was seeing. I need to really quickly mute this chord device and simply just drag this on top. But that's really nice, so you can actually start voice leading more than you did with the chord tool. So yeah, that's an overview of how you use a chord device in Ableton. So now let's move on to Studio One. So now that I have Studio One open, I'm going to, let's actually take the tracks, make them a little smaller. Here we go. And here, again, same basic principle. I've got a beat. To open the MIDI instrument here, you just hit that keyboard icon on the track, and I have a DX7 loaded. To get the on-screen keyboard working, you just need to hit caps lock in Studio One, and it brings up, and it's the same QWERTY setup. And it's nice. It kind of shows it, lays it out for you. Now I'm going to go one octave lower, because I know that's what my chord device needs. Now I really like Studio One's chord device. It's a little more pre-programmed, if you will. And let's just go ahead and see how we would actually set that up. So again, we'll put in a new MIDI track by hitting T. Sorry, let's take off the keyboard. So put in a new MIDI track by hitting T, and let's call it DX7, and go ahead, load it. I'm going to Command F, find DX7, and the chord device in Studio One is located under the Instruments effect category, and it's under Note Effects. So the chord device is called Chorder, and it is pretty intuitive. It's got awesome presets. I really think it's a great feature of Studio One. Let's go to the presets here, and the chord types are what we kind of used in Ableton. They have these kind of chord groupings, which is really nice. So if I do like the Neo Soul chord group, it basically has pre-programmed chords for each note, and they can be kind of different depending on which note. I'll kind of show you what I mean. So let's go ahead and bring this up, take the on-screen keyboard. So let's see what's going on here. When I actually hit the note C, you can actually see, oh, they're not all the same like structures or shapes that are being triggered by each root note that I'm putting in. They're quite different. So you can actually kind of build a chord progression here. And to do this, you do the learn mode, and once it's in learn mode, I select the root note, So if I actually want maybe an extra note there, maybe I don't want that note, I want it there. Ooh, that's kind of dissonant. Or, no, that sounded bad. So you can see that you actually program each individual note, and you'll see Logic's is very similar to this. Take out that note. So the flexibility, if you know your chords, is very powerful. But again, if you don't, go through those presets. Maybe I'm going to try the rock chord group. Interesting. Yep, it's pretty poppy, I like the neo souls because they use a lot of extended chords, so let's hear this. Interesting. And let's go ahead, go back to the Neo Soul 1, which I really like, and now let's record it and see how we can, to change octaves, kind of the arrow keys you see. To change the velocity, they actually have a velocity, and they do have sustain, which is nice. So now let's go ahead, record this. To actually get the MIDI notes, it's a little different in Studio One. Let's hear the beat. I'm going to go one octave lower. So to record it, we just need to bring up the inspector, and it's really a kind of a hidden icon here, but it's this input mode. So this will now switch it to where we record the actual notes. So it's actually pretty streamlined once you know where that icon is. Now if I simply hit record, and if I hit Shift-C to make sure that the pre-count is on, that's going to give me 4, and then I can record 4, 3. And as long as you have that input mode switch, when you go into, I'm going to hit 1 to get the selection tool. Once you have the chords, then again, you can voice lead it. That doesn't. Maybe one note higher. You can kind of just trial and error, but I think definitely just the A is going to sound better. Cool. So again, Studio One has the quarter. It is very powerful, and I really like the way Studio One has this input mode where you don't even have to set up a separate track. You can go straight. That again works for arpeggiation as well, the arpeggiator tool. So like if we did throw the arpeggiator on this, let's just go ahead and do that. So it's really nice using the chord tool as like the bass and then throwing an arpeggiator. But yeah, that's an overview of how we could use our chord device in Studio One. Now let's finally go to Logic. All right, so now we're in Logic. To pull up the on-screen keyboard or the QWERTY keyboard, we can use Command K. And they use the same letters as Ableton. Studio One had it shifted up. And you can see they kind of use the same Z and X to use lower octave, and C and V to do the velocity as well. Now let's look at the chord device here. It's going to be on the inserts here as the MIDI effect, and to actually do this, let's actually set up a new track as well. So in Logic, we can do the plus and do software instruments. All right, to show this, I'm going to load in a new MIDI track. We can do Command Option N to put in a new track, and we'll do software instruments. And let's go ahead, go to the instrument selector. We'll do Arturia, so we'll do, let's go to Arturia, and let's do another DX7. The on-screen keyboard again was Command K, and we just want to make sure it's armed here with the R. And if you just go to the MIDI effects chooser, we can then select chord trigger. Chord trigger is very similar to Studio One's chorder, and we have presets here. So let's just go to the presets, go to the multi. I like the multi because they're kind of like similar to the Studio One's Neo Soul ones, where they have chords programmed on each single note. Yeah, let's try jazz ballad left hand. And you can see if we trigger the single piano note, they do have different structures per piano note. It's very similar, again, to Studio One, where we hit learn, we choose the root note, and we can kind of customize each single note to play a different chord structure. They do have really good, I think, presets, and you know, some of these guitar voicings or like the pop is really nice. Actually, let me go one octave lower. So let's hear this. So yeah, let's record that idea, and let's hit record. 3. Yeah, and in that case, I do kind of want to fix that last note. So let's see how we would capture this MIDI and capture the actual individual chord notes. So I'm going to close the chord trigger device, use Command K to lower to close the on-screen keyboard. And Logic, you do have to have a separate track, so we're just going to add in, again, Command Option N, new software track. And on this, we're going to go to the utility section and use external instrument stereo. Now we're going to do MIDI destination IAC driver bus 1 and channel 1. If you don't have IAC driver bus 1, I want you to command spacebar and search audio, and you'll see audio MIDI setup. Go to the view window. Window. Make sure you see the audio devices, and all you have to do is make sure on this IAC driver that the device is online. So there is a few steps just in case you don't see this already. So once you have this selected on the new MIDI track, you just need to simply take the chord trigger, put it on that MIDI track, and then arm this, put the notes here, so kind of just swap them, and simply record now. So I'm going to hit record, 4, 2. Cool, and I can go double click, and then again, here I know that there is a wrong note. I think it should be maybe, maybe that G. Cool, so again, that's just adding a separate track and then using the software instrument under utility, external instrument, stereo, and then just simply selecting MIDI destination. So a little bit more convoluted than, say, Studio One, but the chord trigger device itself is very powerful. Again, has great presets. And yeah, so that's an overview of how to use the chord devices in Logic. Cool, so that's a good overview of how to use MIDI devices in each DAW, how to capture the MIDI from a chord device or an arpeggiator, and to use the QWERTY keyboard in each of these DAWs. I do recommend still learning music theory. This is not ultimately a replacement, but it can help you get started. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos, and until next time.